Yes, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Another episode of Fight Court. I'm Dean Thomas. We got Ryan Quinn riding shotgun as always. But it ain't about us. It's never really about us. It's always about our guest. And today I am very, very happy to bring in part of the main event, co-main event for next weekend's big UFC fight. I'm actually working that event, and it is the very wonderful, the very tough, the very strong, the very skilled Erin Blanchfield. Erin, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. You look nice. And that's before we got recorded, I wanted to tell you that you look nice.
And you're definitely the nicest dressed guest that's ever come on our show, and that's including me, Dean.
That's funny.
I mean, we never like. And this is how I can tell it's not really fight week, because fight week y'all come on and y'all be like, screw y'all. I'm only doing this interview because the UFC made me.
Yeah.
So before we get into your stuff, I wanted to give you some props actually, because I know you're a black belt from Silver Fox, right?
Yes, correct.
So I'm always on an educational kick. And right now I'm actually studying Carol Provek's armbar series.
Oh, nice.
On BJJ Fanatics, and he's brilliant. I mean, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And his whole system of arm bars and everything is just completely fantastic. And it's always refreshing to see different perspectives. And I know that's where your lineage is in that system. So I want to just give you some props for being a part of that whole system.
Thanks. Yeah, I think he's really good. He's very tricky, I feel like he always finds different angles and like ways to hit things. And I've been training with him since I was like 15, so it's a big part of my game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's cool, because like when you deal with it, when you learn from a person like that who's, like you said, tricky, and they're always finding different angles and different ways of doing things. Whenever I start seeing stuff like that, it's just a constant reminder of, when you're complaining about 5 pounds or something like that, like it doesn't matter. Like if you just found a different way of doing something, you would be able to overcome all those different issues. But most people don't have that. But for you come from a good lineage of educated people, and props to you for that. And that explains a lot of your success. Speaking of your success, you have been very successful. You got a big fight coming up next week. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I'm really excited for this fight. It was supposed to happen a couple of years ago. We were matched up and it fell through, and then I ended up fighting Maverick. But I think it's kind of fun the way that it's panned out, that now we're fighting and we're a main event. I'm excited to get that win.
Yeah. I mean, title aspirations for sure here, 4 and 5 in the world. I love when they have the top ranked opponents on the fight nights. So, but I want to go back to what you guys were talking about before, because I too am on the educational train. So, but you've been training since you were 15 there. Was MMA always the goal, or was it jiu-jitsu then MMA, or did you start training MMA and find out, jiu-jitsu's fun, let me pursue this? Like, how'd that happen?
Yeah, I always wanted to do MMA since I was like a pretty young teenager. But I was looking for like a new jiu-jitsu school at the time, and I primarily wanted to train like a lot of no-gi because I wanted to do MMA. And at Silver Fox, they offered like a lot of both, like no-gi and gi. So, and I also, I knew they were a great school, so that's kind of the reasons why I chose to go there initially. MMA was always the goal. But I competed a lot in jiu-jitsu growing up just because I couldn't do MMA yet. And I always loved that too. But MMA was always the goal.
It's so crazy. They have these like kid MMA tournaments now. It's not obviously what you're doing, but like it's it's like, wow, it's its own thing now. And some of these schools are offering belt rankings in mixed martial arts, and it's nuts. It's really crazy how the sport's evolved. But let's not forget you got hands too. You got some exciting hands. I was just watching some of your highlights earlier. So Now, in terms of training, we don't got to get into like specifics and stuff like that. But so you said you were training like no-gi and everything, and obviously going into MMA and whatnot. But when you like, how much was boxing, like just strict boxing, as far as your training is concerned? Like as for fun, like on a fun aspect. Like me, I prefer to wrestle, but like, what would you say there? Does it max up differently, or is it just 50-50? It's whatever. It's all for MMA.
I feel like I have been boxing for like the last year or so. I've been more consistent with it, and it's like a strict boxing gym. So when I go, I feel like I really just try to like work on my actual boxing.
Yeah.
Not so much thinking like, oh, for MMA, I'm just trying to become like a better boxer.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. And with my Muay Thai too, I've been just trying to like when I do Muay Thai spar, like just focusing on like the striking, like not worrying too much about like, oh, will this work in MMA and this and that. Like especially if you're just doing the session at that gym, like for that purpose, I think it's good just to focus on it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a big reason why my jiu-jitsu is so good is because for years I was focusing on jiu-jitsu just for jiu-jitsu. And I was able to transfer that for MMA. There's little tweaks you have to make here and there, but I think really focusing on that sport for that sport helps you like grow quicker in it.
I think that's a fantastic way, because I was the opposite, and it held me back a lot when I was training. I would only box to get to my wrestling, and that was it. And then it wasn't until I started just playing around with striking, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, that I really developed everything, and my wrestling for MMA became better anyway. So I'm happy you have that mindset. That's real growth that's going to happen and happening, obviously.
Yeah, that's something I've been trying to focus on like during my camps, like doing just some pure like striking sparring. So I don't kind of like what you said, like so you don't rely on using like your wrestling and jiu-jitsu like every sparring session. You want to somewhere you're forced to stand up and strike.
Bingo.
Erin, I gotta ask you, did you happen to catch, of course you did, but I want to get your thoughts on that abomination of a title fight that happened a couple weeks ago in Montreal. What did you think of Valentina Shevchenko and Manon Fiorot?
Yeah, I think Valentina looked just like her old self again. I think she looked super dominant. She countered really well. I mean, especially the first round. I thought she almost was going to finish her the first round because she was catching her pretty good. And then Manon came back. She was trying to take her down. She kind of laid on her a little bit, but I knew it wasn't going to be like enough. I honestly, when I first was watching it, I thought like Valentina just won like everything because I was like, oh, she's just kind of like beat, like especially with the striking, she was really hurting her. So it felt like pretty dramatic, like in the moment. But yeah, I think Valentina she kind of did what she always does. Like she's a really good counter striker. She made Manon like fight her fight.
I thought the fight sucked, to be honest with you. I was like,
Yeah, I thought it was kind of forgettable. Much more looking forward to your
why
fight.
didn't you like it?
No, I just thought it was trash. I thought that I mean, Valentina, I thought she looked good in the first round, and then when Manon started making adjustments, Valentina didn't really respond well until too late to those adjustments. And then I thought both of their wrestling looked terrible, like shooting from too far. I just thought I didn't think they looked really all that great. I said going into the fight that Valentina would give us one last great performance, and I think that was the one last great performance that she has left in her. And and despite her not looking that great, that was still great for what she has left in her. I thought she's a great, like in her prime, but I just think nowadays it's a little bit past her prime. I think it's time to pass it on. And I think you might be the one that she has to pass it on to. Like, what do you say about that?
That's the plan. Yeah, I agree. I think she looked really good this fight, but like you said, I think she's had even more dominant performances in the past, and I think you kind of maybe saw that level off a little bit with like the Alexa fights. Like Alexa was giving her like a lot of issues. That's why they fought so many times, and she got finished the first time, and the second time was a draw, and then she kind of came back and was used her wrestling to win the last fight, which is something you don't usually see her see. Like she's primarily a striker, and she wasn't really able to use that to win against Alexa. And I kind of see what you mean. Like in the Manon fight, she wasn't off the takedowns, and that's what kind of lost her those like 2 rounds that she lost. I think it was just her not being ready to like get up off of that. but I feel like it's nice being able to watch all these fights and like see these girls, so I see what I'm getting myself into, and I can be prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think that's important to notice too. Is you're always looking at the rest of the competition and the rest of the division and see what the trends are and see where it's going. And to me, right now, I think all eyes should be on Natalia Silva. Am I is that fair to say, or am I off base on that, or am I just being a little biased?
I mean, I know now everyone's talking about her. She's ranked number 1 because she just beat Alexa. I think me and Maycee's fights have a lot of title implications too, though. I think it's how you win the fights. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, she like murdered Alexa, but she didn't finish her. So I think like if I get a finish next Saturday, that I definitely put myself like right back into that question. And then, I mean, you never know what's going to happen if like Valentina ends up fighting Weili, then maybe me and Natalia can fight afterwards. But I still think it's up in the air. I know she's obviously number 1 right now because of who she beat last. But I think me and Maycee's fights should definitely be up there.
So, I mean, we basically mentioned it a bunch already about, the title implications. And so when you were first offered Maycee, again, it's funny, it fell through and then it came and we were like, all right, bam, we were supposed to do this, and was like, bam, I'm beating her, I'm getting a title shot. Was that what was going through your mind when that came across your emails or your texts?
Yeah, I was excited to just get another fight, another matchup made. Because I knew that the Valentina Manon fight was going to be happening soon, so I kind of wanted to fight like around then.
Yeah.
So it would line up well if, after winning this fight, it would line up well.
Smart.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the last couple fights have been like, oh, I'll win this and you can like get a title shot. So I've been kind of going in with that same energy every time. And all I can control is how I win the fight. So I've been really focusing on that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the fight between you and Maycee. When I look at it from a perspective of just from a professional perspective, when I'm watching you guys are just mean.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like y'all, both of y'all are just mean. And I always look at that. And Anthony Smith told me once that Maycee told him once that like she said that life is just easier when you're mean. And do you find that to be true? Because like when you like you are like, for the audience now listening, this is completely like off brand for her, like for her to be this nice and dress nice. Because when Erin fights, she's mean. You know what I'm saying? So do you find life to be easier for you when you're mean?
I can see that like in the cage. I think it's easier when you're just like tough, like when you're just like tougher than your opponent. You can like dig deeper, you have more grit. Like I know no one's like tougher than me when I go in there, and I think that's a huge bonus. Like just mentally too, like there's no one, like I feel like you see fights where people kind of like give up on themselves. I could never relate to that in a fight. Like my body would have to give up on me first, Yeah, so I think that grit and that toughness really shows when I fight.
Yeah, but how do you develop that? Was that something that you always had? Do you remember back when you were like 7 and you were in the playground and you were just like, I'm getting on this swing, I don't care who's going to stop me? Was that something that you always had?
Yeah, I think from just competing so young, I think it made me tougher, and it got me, comfortable with that, like with the uncomfortable, that whole kind of thing. I think that is really true. I think it really brought out the toughness in me. I think some of it's just natural. I think I'm just a tough person in general, but I think competing from so young and always being so immersed in it, I think it really, really brings it out of me when I compete.
Yeah, that's when I used to teach my kids classes. I always remembered the little girls were always more feisty and aggressive than little boys. You just never lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. I feel like I never lost it. I think I just made it into a career.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One more for me before we let you go. And one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, young fighters in the UFC, is your partner, Fatima Klein. I've been really high on her on the broadcast and other platforms that I speak on. I could just imagine what training sessions between you are like. Is this do you and her train every day and scrap every day and are very competitive, or does she train at a different gym and just come around every so often? What's you guys' relationship like?
No, we train pretty consistently together. Pretty much like we go to all the same gyms, so we are kind of like training at least in the same room every day. And I think we have a good flow. I think sometimes we do go pretty hard with each other. We're competitive. But I think we know how to like ebb and flow, like when one of us has a fight or the other one does, like helping each other out. Yeah, so I think we have a good flow with it, like going hard and also helping each other.
So outside of yourself and your teammates, and it could be past or present, what's one fighter you really love to watch?
I really like watching George St. Pierre.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I think he really tied everything together really well, and I like to watch those just to. I just love how he like tied his game together. I think he flowed really well.
Nice.
Well, George was so good because he hated
Yeah.
fighting so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. He like always talks about it, how he hated
Yeah.
it, and it was like, oh, he's like, I just hate it, so much stress, this and that. But he's just so he always. I think he said something too. That I always think about. He's like, oh, I was just really good at being good when it mattered, like when it counted. You know what I mean? Because he's like, oh, I'd have like terrible training sessions or not. Like, yeah, I know he had stomach problems and stuff, but he was always like, oh, I was always able to like do what I needed to do when it needed to be done, and I think that's like something really important too. I think like just as a fighter, because especially like going through camps and being tired, it's easy to have like bad days and like think about it too much. But I feel like I always think about that when I'm prepping for fights. Like all that matters is like what you do when you compete.
You guys are making me think. I remember just hearing stories. It's so funny. You hear about like legendary stories about fighters, but when it comes to George, the stories I heard of is how nervous he would get before his fights. He would get
Yeah.
so crazy nervous before. It's insane how and then he'd go out there and he's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, I guess the nerves worked for him.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, I think it was Andre Ward who said this. He said, "Be who you need to be when it's time to be it."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what George did, and that's exactly what you do. Because like right now, you're a sweet human being, but next Saturday night, you are going to be a completely different person, and I look forward to that. I think it's a great matchup. I think the winner of that should be right there in talks of fighting for the belt, and I expect that to be you. So,
Me too.
go do your thing, Erin Blanchfield.
Thank you so much
for coming on the show. Get back to doing what it is that you do best.
And you established a dress code now for this show. We're gonna have to tell our guests they got to match you.
And the dress code. But Erin, we appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you fight, and looking forward to seeing how the rest of your career transpires. You take it easy.
Okay, thank you.
Later.
All right, Erin. See you.
Okay. See ya.
And you know that got me thinking now.
But
Whenever
you
you
never
fight-
think.
Yeah, no, that's whenever I'd say that, my parents would be like, "Oh shit," but whenever I was fighting, like, and I know you hear a lot of, "Oh, when I'm in there, I'm thinking this. When I'm in there, I'm thinking that." I mean, I had a preferred mindset, but let's face it, like whenever people go to work, you know, sometimes you're just in a different mood. I know how I felt when I was performing at my best. Wasn't when I was too amped up. It wasn't when I was like too nervous, so to speak. It was when I felt nothing. Whenever I felt nothing and I was just like able to breathe and I feel like my chest would get warm and then I was just reacting and I would never get high or low in anything that happened within that fight. You know what I'm saying? Like I never got too excited or too anxious or too scared no matter what position I was in. And that's when I always fought my best. You know what I'm talking about? Like what?
Well, so 500 years ago, Miyamoto Musashi wrote the book of the Five Rings. In fact, I have the tattoo right here.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and he talks about that empty space, that void of where nothing exists, and I think that is what he's talking about in terms of in combat is finding that living and finding that space of that emptiness of then in which you can apply strategy in combat.
You know how I would find that space? So I was just naturally would get
mushrooms.
I've actually never done mushrooms. But I would get amped up and I would for the most part I would hide it well, but I was amped and like I'm human, you know, I'm just amped. But I would always play the song, 2 songs, Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison and Doing It Well by LL Cool J. And they knew when I was sitting there in the locker, they knew that it was crunch time. I think because of that like low mellowness and where I was at.
Why Return of the Mac? Because
it's the greatest song I've written, but
because it's either Anthony Smith or Drew Dober who also comes out to that.
So that was my song before anyone walked out to it ever.
Really?
Anthony Smith. I know Anthony Smith has Drew Dober. I think might have once, but Anthony Smith maybe more than once. But that was my jam. That song's the shit. Mo always made fun of me. Can't say
that's so because I remember like listening to some. I was listening to that recently and thinking, like, how did this become a walkout song? And when you hear the song, it's such a crazy song because it's about like a dude who's bouncing back from like some girl dumping him or cheating on him or something like that.
I'll be banging that song. My wife's like, you know what that song's about, right? I'm like, yeah. Well,
and what is he? He's like Jamaican or
I think he's English or he's
yeah. That's exactly. He's got to be English. He's English.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's such a weird song that have made its way from what it was originally intended to be.
Yeah.
To 30 years later being a walkout song for people.
It's like more popular now.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's always found it to be crazy.
Anyway, though, but go. So what about you? What would you do to get to center, as I call it, or how did you feel? Like, what were you feeling when you performed your best when you were fighting?
It's tough, man, because I didn't fully understand fighting the way I do now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had glimpses of it.
Yeah.
Where I felt like, okay, maybe this is what worked. Because what people don't understand is that when I was coming up in the day, I mean, everything was experimental. These things weren't figured out yet.
Yeah.
The way, and there's still things that we're experimenting with now, like every other sport. But back then, we didn't have the science on things, and we didn't really know fully what we were doing all the way. And there was no mental coaches walking us through this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But if I could think back, and I'm like you were, it was when you were calm and collected, like those when you felt like you had your better performances. But that's a scary place to be because everybody else around you is telling you, oh, you need to be this, or you need to be amped up. You're about to get into a fight. You need to. So it's a scary place to be because you feel like, oh, it's a fight, so I have to be amped up. So how do I get myself up? And if I'm not up, I'm not going to perform well. But in my heart, I know I performed better when I'm calm and thinking and watching, and that was always difficult to kind of navigate through. But I always felt like by being like that, I was much more present in the fight. I wasn't worried about like gassing out and things like that. So
yeah, you're just not worried.
Yeah, you're just not worried, and like that's not even in my mind thinking about, oh, I'm going to gas out. It's in your mind when you're to think about gassing out and all those other different things when you're all amped up and excited, like, yeah, I gotta go. But I think for me, it was just trying to stay present and calm and just focusing on what I needed to do in order to win. And I never really felt like being amped up was a part of that equation.
You know, I'm thinking of in the locker room before one fight, and I won't mention the coach's name. And I know, and like to your point, like they mean well, these coaches, when they're doing that. You know, they just, you know, they
just didn't know either. They didn't know.
Yeah, like I remember one coach. You know, everyone thinks I'm this really nice guy or whatever, but and this is when I thought, like, this is when I thought, wow, everyone thinks I'm this really nice, soft guy. When he started saying, he goes, "Don't be nice in there. You're too nice. Go out there. You go out there to win." And I just like, I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm just like, okay, it's not really how I roll, but yeah, but yeah. So I know exactly what you mean with that. So,
I mean, but think about it, Ryan. Like when we had Tim Baghurst,
yeah,
he talked about how even in those sports, like the idea of coaching in those sports was still experimental. And we're talking about like stick and ball sports, and not even that, but just sports has been around forever. But the idea of coaching is so you knew in those sports. Think about how it is in our sport.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even involved in those other sports. Like, people get into MMA because they can't make it in those other sports. So they get into MMA. And so think about how far behind we are in terms of like real coaching and systematic coaching for MMA. So I definitely don't fault all the coaches that I've had in the past for MMA or combat sports, because I do understand that it was just generation of tough guys teaching other tough guys how to be tough guys.
At the end of the day, it is a fight. So I mean, it's easy.
And there's some validity to it for sure.
Yeah. So, but we're learning that now, and then you see it in the corners now too. Coaches are fuck this guy up, blah, blah, blah. Like, come to center, breathe. All right, we're doing this. We're adjusting here. Let's go. And coaches are getting much more conventional with that 1 minute.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
because perfect example.
You got to use. Would you say a perfect example?
I said Nick Nixick. Perfect.
Oh,
example.
right. Well, I've always felt that to be quite contradictory. The one thing you always hear in corners is, I need you to breathe. I need you to relax. I need you to listen. But why in training is it always go hard, go hard, go hard? It's like, yo, how do you expect this guy to get good at breathing and relaxing and listening when all you ever do in camp is stress him out?
Yeah.
Now, I understand there's a difference between providing stress for a fighter and then stressing that fighter out. It's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
I understand in camp providing the stress, but the job is to provide the stress, but keep them calm, not stress them out. And then when the fight comes, expect them to just be calm because they've been stressed out all camp.
Man, you have me rolling now with something I would change if I was coaching again. I would do, you do this too, scenario sparring, whatever the case may be. But one thing I would do is I would do the first 3 minutes of the stress, and then like the first 3 rounds, rather, we usually spar 6-7 rounds. First 3 rounds in that stress, and then work our way backwards on the last 3, or flip that. And like, what did we work on? Now put it to work in the last 3 rounds. Things like that. Just so they see the difference and how much more effective it is when comes fight night. We don't want to work stress in that corner, something just to stimulate in that aspect. That's something I would screw around with.
Yeah. So like, that's my, and I was always tell my guys this, is that I can't influence the stress factor on you. Like, whatever's coming at you is coming at you. That's not, and it could be hard, it could be soft, whatever it is. We can't influence that. All we could do is deal with it. My job is to have you deal with that as effectively as possible without allowing it to stress you.
Yep.
It might be hard, but that can't affect you. You just got to deal with it the same way you would as if it wasn't hard. You got to learn how to get there. But I just think that we so often focus on creating stress for fighters that we never really focus on how to deal with it properly. We just focus on creating it for them.
Yeah, no bueno.
Yeah, no bueno. Absolutely not. Speaking of all that stuff, we talked a little bit before the show started, and that was Morales and Burns. I feel as though for Gilbert Burns, I think he's in a point in his career where he has to. Well, once you get to a certain point and you're fighting at the level he's fighting at, man, you can't be 37 years old. You know what I'm saying? And I tried to warn all them dudes, man, when they was beating up Tyron, when Tyron was 40 years old, and Burns beat him up, Colby beat him up, Usman beat him up, Luque beat him. I was like, yo, just wait, homie. Y'all think y'all so great now? Wait. And it's happening to them. Think about that. All those dudes, with the exception of Luque, 0-10 in their last 10 fights.
Wow, that's quite the stat. Now, yeah, like you say, they age overnight, and I'm thinking maybe we should talk to the UFC about getting his retirement reel ready. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but No, especially like you just can't do it the same anymore. Especially in a fight like he's such a grinder coming forward. Yeah, he's got developed striking to get to the ground, but that is such a grueling pace to manage with that cage control and taking down, punching to get in, exchanges like the Hamzat fight, like exchanges like that doesn't age well. Fighting in general doesn't age well, but how do you adjust? And aside from calling it a career, how I would do it if I was him, because I thought about this too. Like if I ever came back, how would I manage? I can't fight the same way because I had a similar fight style. I would try to jab. I would be more predominantly stand up and I would wait to see what takedown opportunities present themselves with this, but I would be more jab heavy, and I wouldn't necessarily force the combinations. What I would do is I would try to jab heavy and I would put the finish on the exchanges so I'm scoring. Because I can't start a firefight and keep up like that, like we're seeing with him, like we saw on Saturday. So I hope that he has adjustments. I'm not willing to say that he should hang it up right now. I know that he can go out on a win if he does it correctly. Win, not win. He can go out on a win if he does it correctly. But he's got to manage that correctly. Now, even the style that I just mentioned, that's going to get picked up on as well after a matter of time. But I think he can do one more to get a win. What do you think?
It's all opponent dependent.
Yeah.
And where he is in his career, they're not going to match him up with anybody.
They're not going to
give him a win unless they do him in another older fighter. That's the problem with being in a big gym too, because when you're older and you start to decline and you're at such a high level, it takes a tremendous amount of detail to fix your style to still be competitive.
Yeah.
And the idea of him being at a big gym like Kill Cliff, which is to me a young man's gym, where it's a lot of bodies, a lot of tough rounds, and so the environment is really great in terms of positivity and all that stuff, but it requires a tremendous amount of specific detail to really alter a style like Gilbert Burns's, and I just don't think that they are going to do it.
Yeah. It's really up to him, and it's tough to do. Plus, he's coaching out himself, so it's like
and
it's full.
Sure.
We talked about that. Yeah, like that's a lot of reinventing to do with a plate like full like that.
Yeah, I just can't see that happening. I am more than willing to bet that he's probably got one more left in him, if that, or he's probably just going to hang it up and go, you know what? Kill Cliff needs another mind to help develop these young guys. I'm just going to coach. And they could use him, honestly. They could really use a guy like Gilbert Burns on the coaching staff over there. But I can't imagine that his last couple camps have been them sitting down in front of a whiteboard figuring things out. But that's really what it takes. Honestly, that is really what it takes in order to keep a guy like Gilbert Burns competitive in his division.
Mm-hmm. He might be coaching jiu-jitsu at two gyms. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like seen him in the pictures and stuff like that. But
I know his brother has a gym called The Way out in Lantana.
Okay.
Yeah, I literally lived down the street from it. I never went in there, but I lived right down the street from his gym in Lantana a few years ago. But speaking of gyms and fighting and all this other good stuff, even this is information. Let's we're gonna pivot over to this and I know you wanted to talk about this lightweight title fight, Ilia Topuria going up and fighting Charles Oliveira, just automatically getting a shot.
So, when the fight got announced, I didn't feel this way right away. I was like, yeah, okay, I see it. But Justin Gaethje said something on it, and I agree with him. I feel he got passed up. I think that they're both 1-1 coming off a win in their last two. I feel that Justin's been in the much more exciting fights, and the weight of schedule within those two, I think, was more presentable for a title fight if you were going to choose them like this. And overall, I think that he is a much more fun fight to watch against Ilia, I think.
Yeah. So you thought it should be Justin and Ilia, not Charles and Ilia?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that, like we said, he's no spring chicken either. what is he going to have to do to get a title fight? Who does he have to beat now to get in that range? Because the lightweight division's up now, so what is he going to fight in Armin or Gamrot? And then he's got to fight for the title. Like, I think that he got passed up. I think he did enough if you were going to choose to put it in there. And I know forever we felt that it was Charles Oliveira's division to lose, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I really don't. I don't think it has been for a while. Ever since everyone, quote unquote, he lost the belt on the scale. I think that the lightweight division could use more other people. I was about to say new blood, but that's not the case either with Gaethje. But I think that Gaethje got passed up. What do you think?
That's an interesting thought process. I hadn't even thought of it that way. It's almost, and this is probably what happened. You just almost assumed that Charles Oliveira was getting the shot.
And I did.
Right? We just automatically assumed that. So when you said, when you first brought it to my attention that Justin Gaethje got passed up, I was thinking, oh, Justin Gaethje and Charles. But now you're saying Justin and Ilya, and I'm thinking, oh, that's different, because it never was a thought of mine. Like, to me, it almost was automatic that we just assumed and expected it to be Charles. And maybe the UFC did too. Like, they just saw it, that was the way it was supposed to be. Like, Charles probably just talked his way to being like, yo, I'm fighting for this title. I'm fighting for this title. I'm fighting for the title. So then automatically we just assumed that was the situation. And now when you present it this way, it does make logical sense.
I just, personally, I'm just not interested in Oliveira Gaethje rematch right now. Maybe in the future.
No, I'm saying not even them, but like Gaethje and Ilya.
Yeah, well, on the flip side, like to what you're saying, I didn't even think of Gaethje and Oliveira, but I'm down with an Ilya Gaethje. That's I think that should have been the fight. That would have excited me more. I mean, this fight, it's going to do well, but that would have excited me more.
I think that would have excited me more too. I think the only other reason I could see them not giving it to Gaethje is maybe just the lasting impression of him getting knocked out by Max might have hurt his stock a little bit in terms of championship aspirations.
Yeah, so now I feel that Charles going up there, and now we're playing matchmaker as far as promotion, but I feel like Charles going up there, you're kind of pushing back the other lightweights, because now Fiziev just lost to Gaethje again, so now he gets pushed back, and you don't want to see that fight a third time. I don't. I'm happy with the way the first two went. And then Gaethje, you got to hope that he could stay healthy and stay with it, and then he can come off one now. But like I said, who's he going to beat? And then if he beats that person, and then they get pushed back, like a Gamrot or an Armin or anything along those lines. I mean, damn, Yeah,
it's tough to say where Gaethje even goes from here. Like, do you put him against Armin? I would much rather have seen him fight Ilya, honestly. Now he's like, man, I would have much rather have seen that.
Yeah, and maybe I think they will do that fight though, the Armin and Gaethje, but and that's going to be a great fight. But it's not going to be an exceptionally, I think with everything going on with the lightweight division, I think that it could have been handled differently.
Yeah, you're right about that. I didn't consider that, and now you bring it up, and I go, yeah, maybe he did get kind of passed up, and it was just based on our own perceptions and bias towards Charles, just almost accepting that he deserved to be in that spot, and we didn't even question. I didn't even question it.
And who did Patty just get matched up with? Patty, or is that official? I saw something with Patty and. I didn't know if it was official, so I didn't put any thought into it. I'm kind of thinking out loud now. So what are you going to put Patty against Gaethje? I mean, I guess that could sell too. But do you really want to, which I think Gaethje could still win that fight?
Dog, if I'm Gaethje, I'm taking that fight.
Yeah.
All day long.
You're getting paid.
I'm taking that fight. If I'm not getting the title fight, I'm asking for Patty.
Yeah.
Because I still think that based on what I've seen from Patty, there's still some questions to be answered. I know we saw him just annihilate Michael Chandler, but still, like, you got to also, Michael Chandler had some responsibility in him getting beat up a little bit. Michael Chandler didn't look like the young, hungry lion that we're used to seeing.
And, sorry to cut you off, but that is also, I've been doing that a lot lately. I got to chill. But that also magnifies Charles's win against Michael recently. You know, where it's like Michael had responsibility in that, and Charles's win on that one too. So it's like, you know, where I just feel there's more upside with Justin.
Hey, to be honest though, I thought, you know, and this is like what I said to Erin Blanchfield about Valentina. She gave us her very last great performance in this one. I think I think Valentina put so much energy into getting her belt back from Alexa Grasso. She just doesn't have much left. It just feels that way. And I think the same thing with Michael Chandler. I think he gave all his energy into entertaining us with that last Charles fight.
Yeah, I think that's
when
fair
when he fought Patty, he just didn't have nothing left.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. That's fair to say.
So I'm still questioning like how good Patty really is. And I think he's getting better, and I think he's taking his career more serious. But I just can't imagine him standing in the ring or in the cage eating bombs from Justin Gaethje.
We will know where Patty Pimblett is when he fights Justin Gaethje. Hopefully that's the fight they make then. That's the fight I'm lobbying for. We will know where he's at.
If I'm Justin Gaethje, I'm asking for that right away. I'm like, yo, all right, you're not going to give me the title fight? Give me Patty.
Maybe they will do right by him. Maybe that's the way they do it.
Because that's the one guy at the top of that division who kind of skated his way to the top of that division that I still kind of have questions about, because I know what Arman Sarukian is capable. Like we're pretty clear on like what he brings to the table. Mm-hmm. But I'm still not 100% clear about what Patty brings to the table, because he was so young and he's had these weird wins in a way. Like we know that he's a good offensive fighter, but defensively, I don't know if he's all that great. And he's had these weird wins along the way. And then he beat King Green in a weird way that, again, King Green was on a downslide. Then he beat, Michael Chandler, who just didn't have nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man, put him in there with Gaethje.
Let's do it.
I'm here for that. Anything else, Quinn?
No, that's it. That's all I got. I mean, I think that was pretty good. I'm excited about Erin. Happy we had her on here. She looked lovely. That's it.
Yeah. So, my man, let's do it again next week, man. If you you got anything else, man? If you got anything else, man, pop up a little one of them little shorts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got a
you got a thought or two. Pop up a little short, man. That's all good. You know, the people love that. People love the stuff. But if you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. On that note, this court is adjourned.